Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's Retail Reimagined. My name is Michael Maher. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Longer Game, the podcast where we talk all about retail. And today I have a fellow Amazon ecosystem. I almost said Amazonian, but I've not worked there. I don't know if you've worked there, but a fellow friend in the Amazon ecosystem. It's Mike Begg. He's the CEO of AMZ Advisors. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I did not work at Amazon, but
Cool.
I am in the Amazon community.
Yeah, so I did get that right. I do think that the ex-Amazon thing is a pretty good flex. I mean, now it's like, I feel like 5-10 years ago is a little bit different than like ex-Google, ex-Meta, or ex-Facebook, whatever. But I do feel like, or ex-Microsoft, I've even seen it. It's a little bit of a cool flex. If I had worked there, even if I worked in like a fulfillment center, I would definitely be putting ex-Amazon because I feel like it lends probably a little bit of credibility to you.
I mean, I've seen a ton of different consultants and agencies pop up claiming that they're ex-Amazon. I don't know what part of Amazon they worked in, but they're using it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess beg, borrow, steal, do what you can. But I mean, ultimately, there's a reason why third parties exist, agencies exist, because Amazon's not going to build your brand for you. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about AMZ Advisors, other business ventures and stuff that you got going on?
Sure. So, AMZ Advisors has been around for almost 9 years at this point, which is a long time.
It's a very long time.
Yeah, it's more. Every time I think about it, it's crazy to think about. But what we do is we help brands scale on the Amazon platform, essentially. Everything from paid advertising, SEO, content, and conversion rate optimization, and looking at outside alternative traffic sources to bring more people to Amazon. We've been working with, I don't even know how many brands at this point, but we've generated over $1 billion in sales for our clients since we started on the platform. So that's been a huge milestone for us. And
that's awesome. Congrats, man.
That's the biggest company I have. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've got some other projects going on. Another one called Go Advance in Latin America, where we actually help brands break into the Latin American market because it is a lot more difficult than it seems at face value. NARF is not the answer.
For people that don't know, explain what NARF is. I almost said bless you, but that was not a real sneeze. But yeah, tell people what NARF actually is and what are the potential pros and really what are the cons, I guess, of that.
For sure. I mean, NARF is the North American Remote Fulfillment Program offered from Amazon FBA. Essentially, it allows you, when you're selling in the U.S., to tap into both the Canadian and the Mexican markets by sending inventory for orders that come from those marketplaces from the U.S. Now, the great thing is that obviously it opens you up to more markets, but the bad thing is that it really doesn't give you a true performance or doesn't really unlock the true potential that you have in those marketplaces. There's a variety of different reasons, but especially here in Mexico where I live, it is very difficult to get the products in. The shipping times are much longer. There's a lot of hidden costs that you don't see and that that many sellers don't even know the end consumer is paying. So the net result is you have a consumer who doesn't have a great shopping experience, and you have a seller who's not getting the most sales or the most conversions that they could be getting in that marketplace. So it's really not a win-win for anyone. I guess the only one that's really winning is Amazon.
And they're honestly probably not winning that much either because they're not getting many sales, and that's where they're going to actually have their fulfillment centers or the whole marketplace get put to good use. If you're putting stuff in the fulfillment center in Mexico, of course, you'd now be Prime eligible, et cetera. But I think Amazon's missing out because it seems like an easy lift. Hey, I'm just going to hit this button and I'm going to send stuff out. And they're starting to turn on global fulfillment for Brazil, or they've done it for other, European countries as well too. And it seems like a cool idea, but I think the name of the game in a visual standpoint, a language standpoint, but also a inventory location standpoint, like localization is how you actually grow the business.
Of course, yeah. I mean, being local, it makes a huge difference, and we've seen this throughout different Latin American marketplaces, especially here in Mexico. A good example that we were briefly talking about before is a brand that was doing well in NARF. I mean, relatively well. They were selling 200-300 units a month in NARF, and they were like, "All right, how much can I sell if I actually get the inventory into Mexico?" So we actually helped them bring the inventory in. Fulfilled it from here, did all the localization with the content, the images, everything to make it appeal to the local Mexican market, and conversion rates went from about 1% to about 8%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's a massive pickup by actually being in market. I mean, the main reason is that and not many people have probably shopped on Amazon Mexico, but every product that's in the NARF program has a tag that says imported. And me as a consumer, as any consumer down here that sees that, knows there's going to be extra costs. It's going to take longer to get here. Returns are going to be expensive to get it back to the US because that's another big issue. So it's really a detractor for many people shopping on Amazon in Mexico.
It just feels like a bad experience all around. Like I get the concept, but and maybe it's a way to test. I mean, another similar Amazon thing to me would be virtual bundles. Like it can be a good way to test, but you're limited on what you can do from an ad standpoint. You're limited on like it's totally new products, so you need reviews. I really should turn off my Apple generated things, but the icons and stuff, but I just don't do it. So whatever. Anyway, I think that it can be a good way to test, but it's going to be a limited test because it's a brand new listing and you have to create additional content for it and you're limited on the ad side. So it really will just like, I think you need to temper your expectations, tamp down your expectations of what can come from it and know, hey, this is going to be a limited test. But then if we do go, all in, we'll probably see better results.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, it's tough to even evaluate it as a test because the results are not actually true to what you're getting. And when we look at e-commerce in Mexico in general, in Latin America in general, Amazon is obviously a very big player, but Mercado Libre is also a very big player. So if you're only doing NARF, you're only focused on one of the two major platforms, your conversion rates are lower versus like once you get in, we're able to help you get onto Amazon Mexico through FBA. Mercado Libre's Mercado Full program. It's the FBA equivalent in Latin America. So you're same options essentially for there. We're able to get you into Walmart, into Liverpool, into Coppel, which is another retailer. Like these are all major retailers, and they're where people are going to shop. So people don't just go to Amazon; they go to these other platforms as well and buy. And like that's another big part you need to consider with the test is that you're only seeing a relatively big piece of the puzzle, but there's a lot of other pieces out there where your product might perform better than Amazon.
When you're talking about getting into Walmart, are you saying like getting them into the physical store or the marketplace for Mexico?
Both in some instances. So we've been able to successfully get some brands into retail in Mexico and into Walmart, into the grocery stores and the pharmacies, which is awesome. Liverpool is the biggest department store. It's essentially, I don't know how many department stores are left in the U.S. I guess it's like the equivalent of Macy's, maybe.
Macy's in its heyday, yeah, maybe.
In its heyday, maybe. Maybe that's a better way. Sears still exists down here, but we don't really help anyone get.
Did you know that Sears had? I don't know if they still do, but they had a marketplace.
Did you know I worked at Sears?
I did not know that. Did you work on the marketplace? Because I've got some feedback for you.
Didn't. No, I didn't. I worked in the real estate department.
Oh, okay.
So I was one of the people actually closing the stores.
Oh man, that must have felt rough.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. But we were all the real estate we were selling off, all the stores we were closing, all of that was going to fund that marketplace, which was just a terrible investment.
So before my agency's been around for 8 years, and before that I sold on Amazon for 6 years. one of the marketplaces that I got on was Sears. I knew it was going to be bad when one of the things I was selling was lacrosse balls. I did a lot of like fitness equipment, and it was mostly generic, or I would take something and just resell it, buy
Yeah.
buy from a brand, and would be, I guess, an authorized reseller, but that wasn't even really a thing back then. It was before like even private label was really starting to become big. But my point is, someone bought a lacrosse ball. I put it up as a single, and it was $6.99. They thought it was a 12 pack because that's what Sears adapted it to, and that's what they mapped it to. And customer was like, I got one instead of 12, and so I had to deal with that, refund them or whatever, and or give them more balls. And I said, hey, there's a problem, etc. Here's what's going on. And the response, the like automated response I got was, great, thanks for submitting your case. We'll get back to you in 7 business days. To which I was used to dealing with Amazon, which is like, a day maybe. And I was like, oh, 7 business days. That's not really going to work for me. So it never really got up off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really surprised. I mean, the entire Sears shopping demographic was generally older people, and trying to get them to adapt an e-commerce platform was never really going to be a successful play. But yeah, it was interesting kind of seeing the meltdown from the inside.
That's a good way of putting it. It's a not future focused marketplace, and you're trying to get older people to get onto it. So it's like just a weird mix of stuff there. I actually got onto Jet too before Walmart acquired it.
Yep.
That was not a good experience either. So when Walmart acquired that tech, I was kind of like, what are you doing here? Because then they let everyone go, and that was the tech that they built the marketplace on, which was arguably not good tech. And so they probably would have been better off just building from scratch, or hiring some ex-Amazon people to come over and start building stuff. Like, that's what I would do if I were them and I needed to get some insight, instead of buying this tech and then trying to turn it into a marketplace, because I uploaded my catalog or submitted my catalog, all the requirements they asked, and they're like, cool, it's going to take us 6 weeks to get this live. And I was like, what? I don't think it ever got live. I really honestly don't remember. And it was cool because it was exciting. It was, again, this promise of this could work, kind of like NARF going into Mexico. It seemed like it would be cool, but the lift was just not so great because there was no adoption to the marketplace.
Yeah, we actually tried Jet early on. I think it was right after they got bought by Walmart. We tried to do that as a platform for some clients, and it was just a pain. We were like, you know what? Let's just stick to Amazon. This is what we know. It's our bread and butter. These other platforms are a little clunky, making it easy to say, but yeah, I mean that's common. It's like a lot of these ideas that Amazon or the marketplaces come up with are good in the idea, but the execution is not necessarily good, or the benefit to the seller is not generally what they intend, or they're not able to see it from the perspective of the seller or the consumer. So, I mean, NARF is a very clear example where people are losing out, but I mean, there's probably been a ton of other examples I can't even think right now on Amazon. But yeah, I mean, it happens all the time.
There's 2 things that I'm thinking of when I'm listening to you talk about that. One is, and this is a common theme that I see across a lot of things, building something with a why attached to it and knowing what you're hoping to get from it. Just building a marketplace because we want to compete, you're already disadvantaged there. There's plenty of other marketplaces that people can go to. Why should someone come to yours? So not starting with the why, I think, is a dangerous place to be, because you're asking for failure, and it's probably going to hit you a lot harder than if you knew, we tried to build this thing for this reason and it just didn't work, and I'm okay with that. Building something and not knowing why it tanks, I think, would be a little bit more frustrating. And then the second piece is, when I think about people building something that is going to compete with Amazon, I've talked with investors and other people, and they talk about, well, what about Temu? Is Temu going to, take on Amazon and all this stuff? I love your reaction, because it's somewhat similar to mine. And it's not that I don't think they can take some market share, but there's a lot of small fish going after a big fish to take market share. And there's a reason why businesses like Shopify sold their fulfillment network to Flexport. it's expensive to do. Amazon lost a lot of money on it for a long time to get it to where it is now. And, Amazon's an easy target to attack because they're just so big. But look at stuff in context. An example would be, I read an article where 4,500 counterfeit products are live on Amazon right now. That sounds like a lot. Then you look at the millions of products that are on there. You're like, oh, the percent actually works out. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. So that's what I mean. Like, it's easy to attack them. But when it comes to building something that Amazon's already done, there needs to be a real reason behind that. So like people are super, bullish on TikTok. That's fine. I'm kind of lukewarm on it. Just my personal take. I think there's obviously security concerns, but even beyond that, it's just so quick and so fast paced. I'm like, where is this going? Like, is there room to grow on this? And so it's hot right now, but they're building their own fulfillment network. I'm like, okay, is that really going to amount to anything? When I hear people building something, I don't know that they really have a why. I think they're wanting to be competitive, but there's Amazon's got 10 years on you essentially.
Yeah, I mean, TikTok I think is a different example, but like going back to the Sears example that you
TikTok is definitely very different than Sears. Just to be clear.
No, but like they were trying to compete in a way, not by building their own marketplace. Shop Your Way, I think it was called. I don't remember the name anymore. But when I joined Sears, we essentially created a real estate investment trust and we sold it off. We raised $2.5 billion and the company burned through all of that cash in a year. So like that's how much investment it takes to really get that going. And unless you're a massive, massive corporation and you're willing to take losses for a long extended period of time, you're really not going to be able to compete with the established choice. And I mean, that's the way that the game's designed, unfortunately. Like Amazon will buy out smaller competitors. They'll take platforms down that they combine it into their ecosystem so that they control it. And that's what well-capitalized companies do. So it makes it that much harder to even get on a level playing field with most of these companies.
Yeah, I just kind of shake my head a little bit. I'm like, what were you thinking? It's almost like when people will create a logo. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it's like the worst logos ever. And someone creates a logo and it's like phallic shaped. And it's like, did nobody check you on this logo? No one gave you advice. Like, this might be a bad idea because of this. That's what I think of when I think of those kind of things.
I think I just saw a building that was recently built that also has a phallic shape. And everyone was questioning the architect, like, did you not see what this was going to look like after it was finished?
Salesforce new building, right?
Is it?
Sure, because I just talked with someone about that last week. They were like, yeah, it was this building, Salesforce, and it was very obvious what it looked like. And I went and looked at it, I was like, oh, I get it. I actually kind of feel the same about Blue Origin. If you look at any of those rockets, very, very, very phallic shape. But maybe that was very intentional by Bezos. I don't know. You tell me.
No idea. Maybe it's aerodynamic. Who knows?
I never even thought about that. That's a great point. When people are wanting to get into Mexico or they're wanting to expand, from a marketing perspective, we've talked about localization. I know majority of the business that we're working with are on the U.S. side. I know that you work with a lot of U.S.-based businesses as well, or you're working in the U.S. market, I should say. But you go to a market like Germany, they don't want you to market to them like a this is a great product. It's like, what are the stats? Yeah. Give it to me. I want it or I don't, and that's it. What is it like in Mexico?
So I think Mexico is an interesting example because culturally it's very similar to the U.S. Like people actually look at it like it's very different, mainly because of language differences. But when it comes to consumer preferences, it's very similar. And I forgot the most recent stats, but something like 40 million in the U.S., 40 million Mexicans are living in the U.S. and shopping in the U.S. So like many of those Mexicans are coming back to Mexico after living in the U.S., having the U.S. experience, and that's clearly having an impact on the culture here. So it's much more aligned. From a marketing standpoint, like you really don't have to change anything that drastically.
Okay.
The one thing I would say, though, is that Mexicans, I'm pretty sure it's number one in the world for social media use.
What? Really?
So,
number one in the world?
Yes. So
like for time or number of...
For time. for time. They spend on average like 4 hours a day or something on social media, something wild,
Is
and
it weird that I try
that is a
and
massive
minimize
opportunity for
my
marketing.
my time on social media for someone who's in a space where you have to kind of be visible on social media? Like I've said, I would go back to a Nokia phone, like the old brick with Snake on it, if I
Yeah.
could. But there's no way I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I literally keep all my notifications off. I try not to go on as much as I can. I think like if I looked at my time tracking, it'd probably be like 30 minutes a week. But yeah, 4 hours a day is an
And
insane
that's the
amount, which
average.
means that and that's the average. Yeah. So there's some people that are spending more. So
And that's across
you
all
have
age
to,
demographics.
uh, yeah, I believe so. I mean, that's the average across the entire
I just
population.
imagine it
So
would probably be more with younger kids, but I'm generalizing.
yeah. Well, you also have to think that most of Latin America, it's more common to have a cell phone than it is to have a computer. So it's a lot more accessible for everybody to just be on their phone. It's like, oh, I'm bored, whatever. Let's see what's here. But anyway, from a marketing standpoint, it presents a great opportunity to market your products. And from a cost standpoint, when we look at what the cost of advertising in the U.S. is compared to the cost of advertising in Mexico, it's like we see it sometimes like 1/4 to 1/10 of what we would
Damn.
be paying for certain categories in the US, which is just a massive opportunity.
This is everybody's wake up call. You want to get in and grow your business. It sounds like there's a big opportunity on the Mexico side of things.
There is, and especially interesting in general is that DSP is available in Mexico, and DSP is incredibly cheap in Mexico. So we've worked with a few Mexican brands. One of them is the largest protein brand in Mexico, and the amount they were spending on DSP compared to what they were spending on the campaign manager was like completely inverse. Normally, you see like campaign manager is like 90% of your spend, DSP is like 10. They were spending like 70-80% of their money on DSP and 20% on campaign.
What were the results like?
Like that's 20 ROAS.
Man,
Yeah, 5% tacos, 20
what
ROAS.
kind of CPMs are we
Like
talking about here?
that I don't have. That's going too far back. But
I'm just gonna say, like, it can get really expensive. Like Amazon has done opportunities where they will open up access to like Prime only. So if you just want to get on Prime, because you can run, on the state side, you can run to Freevee. Of course, you can do all the online OLV stuff, going to Twitch or whatever. But like you can use Freevee. Of course, they can get access to Prime, but you can't segment that specifically. And I want to say the CPMS were like, 3 digits. It was like $100 or something like that. So I mean, it's like
no, they're much cheaper.
guaranteed. I mean, that's not the average, but like that was a very specific gated. I mean, I see anywhere from, I don't know, 4 to 8, but like I imagine it's a really good return, and that is an example of someone getting in early and taking advantage of something where a lot of brands that really is like probably 10 to 15 years ago. In reality, from an actual media standpoint, I think DSP launched in like, or just advertising in general was like
2017.
no, it was like it was like 2012. It's like 2010 or 20. It was because I've had to go and look it up because I'm like, there's no way. Yeah, it was that long ago. But the search campaigns did not become self-service and available until like 2013. I saw it show up in my account probably late 2014, early 2015, kind of on the tail end of my business. And DSP, I want to say, started opening up more for maybe like an agency or something to run it probably around the same time. But I mean, that's like 10 years ago. That opportunity feels like it would be huge.
Yeah, no, the opportunity is massive, and we've been interested to bring a lot of brands in because we see the opportunity, because we can establish them as the number one brand down here, and there's really not much competition, which is the other thing. Like I mentioned, product selection from the consumer side. If you're going to Amazon and you're searching for, I don't know, protein powder, let's say, just like a basic one, and you have 20 products that are all North American remote fulfillment. They all have the imported tag, and you have one product that is actually in country. It's like, well, I may as well just go to the store and get something else instead of having to wait for all this. So it's very interesting for a lot of brands that are investing in the platform and really getting in the marketplace, I should say, and really getting in here now.
Any categories that you're seeing that are just like really crushing it and taking off?
Yeah, so we actually work pretty closely with Mercado Libre on helping get brands in to their marketplace. and they've shared with us like the list of products they're trying to get in and what the biggest categories are. And this is not that surprising when we think about protectionism in Latin America, but electronics is number one. There is a massive arbitrage opportunity with electronics from the U.S. to Latin American countries because a lot of them don't import products from China, and a lot of them also can't afford new, $1,500 iPhones. So that's a big one. Another big category is beauty. Cosmetics is massive. I can say from my own experience, every time I go back to the U.S. Without my wife is asking me to bring, and her family and her friends and everyone's asking me to bring a ton of cosmetics back. So there's a massive demand for that. Supplements is another big category. Health and personal care, that's generally a big category as well. So those are like the three largest categories that Mercado Libre says there's demand for, and generally what categories we see perform the best down here.
So are you saying that you're starting an arbitrage business now, or you're thinking about it?
I'm not. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
So the challenges
the cost
are,
to bring that across the border, I imagine, would still be very high.
The cost,
if you were shipping a pallet or something over,
yeah.
like, wouldn't you have to pay as someone in Mexico? Wouldn't you have to pay import tax on something coming in?
It depends on the product and in the categorization. Cosmetics themselves don't have the issue. The issue with cosmetics is that you need to get the essential FDA approval beforehand, before it crosses the border. So we know how to do that. We have a team that can do that, but it does make it a little bit more complicated from that standpoint because you have to go through a lot of product compliance hurdles. So that's one thing. But you just made me think about something else. We're talking about arbitrage. If there was something I tried to do with arbitrage, but from Mexico to the U.S., there's a massive demand in the U.S. for Mexican Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The formula is different. And I tried to actually figure out, I got approved as a buyer with Coca-Cola. So I had the ability to buy wholesale from Coca-Cola in Mexico. I tried to figure out how to bring it over to the U.S., but they have an export control from Mexico. So only certain people are allowed to actually export Coca-Cola. So I couldn't get that arbitrage.
I love where your mind's going with that. Like, there's an opportunity here. We should definitely tap into that. And Mexican Coke, for sure, you'll see those glass bottles show up in very specific places. Even like, I feel like nicer places are like, we're going to have something, it's going to be a Mexican Coke bottle. Because one, it's glass, it looks nice. And two, I've heard, I can't really say because I haven't really had, if I've had Mexican Coke, it's maybe been once or twice, and I just don't really drink soda. So it would be hard to compare. Although I can tell you that I definitely have a preference between Coke and Pepsi. Coke has more like pop and spice to it. Pepsi, I feel like, is a little flatter, even if it's the same level of carbonation. But yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that show up in like nicer places too.
The interesting thing, or the main difference between them, at least, and like I don't really drink it, so I can't say from a taste perspective, but Mexican Coca-Cola still has sugar in it.
Right. It's not high
fructose. That's what the big difference is. Yeah, exactly. So that's what the big difference, why people like it so much, or at least what I've been told why people like it so much.
Amazon Accelerate just happened. This podcast is going to come out well past that, but there was a lot of announcements. There were a lot of funny stuff, even too, that I wasn't fully in all the sessions. I was talking and meeting with people. But Amazon announced a bunch of, or just leaning more into the generative AI side of things. And of course, AI is a super big buzzword. I don't feel as weird talking about it anymore because it's out and about, and I don't want to just create hype and buzz. The 5 new AI ways to grow your business. I'm sure there are, but what's interesting is Amazon has Rufus now. So Rufus is on the consumer side. They've always used AI, and there's a lot of recommendations of like maybe in Campaign Manager, hey, we're seeing a decrease here. You should increase. You missed this. So like I'm sure there's an maybe not quite AI, but automation all the way up to AI, some kind of machine learning that's in there saying we're seeing this. So if this happens, then do this. Well, they're releasing stuff that's now internal for Amazon sellers. Project Amelia is what they're calling it. I think it started as something else, and now it's Project Amelia, but it's going to be a Gen AI assistant. And I think that's interesting. There's other ones too. Like you can use generative AI images for sponsored brands. I've used them, like created them. I'm like, they're just okay. It really depends upon like what's your main product image too. If your main product image is in a box and you want to create a generative AI image, you have to give it, something different. So it's not great. In my opinion, it could be good for someone who has no access to any creative or doesn't know how to create creative. Like, yeah, lean into it and go into it. But that's a more, I would say, basic seller approach. But they're adding motion to some of the photos, and now they're allowing you to create video using generative AI, which I think is cool. It still remains to be seen how effective it's going to be. But the selling assistant, I think, is interesting because Amazon is becoming more of in the US, more of an official retailer. Higher costs, their cost to do business, I feel like, is higher just to get in. When I first started, I could buy something for $500 inventory and be like, I'm going to flip this. And it would become $3,000. It'd be like, oh, it's a win. Like, I'm profitable right away. Let's buy more. Like, that just does not happen anymore. So that feels like a tool that will help more new sellers and maybe more basic sellers, but it's still not going to give you, I believe, the insights of like, well, why is this thing happening? It can give you insights, but then how do we reverse engineer where we want to go, and what are the creative ideas beyond that? That was a long segue of saying that's some of the features that are coming out. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wasn't at Accelerate, so I don't know all the features coming out, but that is one that I've heard a lot of comments about. And I think the funniest comment I heard about it is working with Amelia going to be like dealing with Seller Central or Seller Support, I should say. And yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, like, you really don't get a straight answer from Seller Support. Are you really going to get a straight answer from Project Amelia? I doubt it. I think it is a valuable resource for people that are starting on the platform and probably trying to figure things out, how things work. How do I do this? How do I do that? But if you're actually if you think that it's going to provide like any strategic value or guidance around what you should be doing to market your brand, I think you're probably going to be let down. Generally, I don't think that AI is at that level to really analyze that type of consumer behavior down to the standpoint of, optimize this image because of this. I really don't think we're going to see something like that come out.
I've used Rufus just as like a test, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've seen some people who they use it and the results turn out really good. I've seen people who use it and it like creates a product. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. This product doesn't exist. I'm sorry, I'm generative AI. So sometimes I will make mistakes. Like, that's a little crazy, I think. So you have to double check it. Like, it defeats the purpose if you have to double check. But the way that I've seen generative AI, if you want to talk about, the internet revolution, if you want to talk about generative AI revolution, whatever, I think about the industrial revolution. I mentioned this on another podcast. I think I did. But the industrial revolution is, okay, people start utilizing machines, because machines are going to take over our jobs of manually putting stuff together. While that's true, in like 10 to 15 years, there was a whole new economy that was created around that. So the mechanism of what you were doing, or your inputs into that ecosystem, are now different, but there's other jobs and other needs that are created. Now we can produce more. Okay, well, what do we need to do? We need to have people that can manage the production capacity, that can help forecast more as we have more that needs to be made. So I see like generative AI, it's going to take all the stuff that you can't do in a short period of time or in that amount of time, and take big data sets and turn it into something that's digestible for you. Well, now you can go out and do that. Or maybe you become a prompt engineer, or maybe you help create new GPTs for people based on this. Like, there's a bunch of new stuff that's coming out. So I think it can be helpful, but it's not going to say, yo, Mike, your business right now is seeing a decline of 1,000 impressions on these ad campaigns, and we looked in the market and saw that there's 3 new competitors that have come in and that are starting to bid. Like, it's going to give you stuff like, hey, your impressions are down, you should spend more money, or you're missing out on clicks, you're missing out on sales, you should spend more money. But the why and all that other stuff, it feels like it. My guess is it's probably going to fall a little flat in the high expectations that people have.
And honestly, my kind of going beyond that, my expectation of AI is that it's going to reach a ceiling at some point, because there's just such a massive amount of capital investment that needs to go into it. I mean, I think that the calculations at this point is like quadrillions of dollars we need to invest into infrastructure to actually deal with the development of AI, between power, between data systems, between computers. And that money just doesn't exist. So like, we are going to reach a limit, I think, on what AI is going to be capable of do. And in a way, when we look at like a company like OpenAI, here's a good example. they got
Never
a
heard of
$100
them.
billion contract.
Just
They
kidding.
got a $100 billion contract from the government. It's because they can't actually turn a profit from what they're doing right now because their costs are
Sure.
so high. So will they ever get to break even? I really don't know. But that's kind of why I think there will be some benefits that come from it, but I really don't know that it's going to be, this all encumbering change that we expect the world to
My
see.
challenge to you is, don't you think people said that about Amazon?
Possibly, but I think when we're looking at the
I'm
scale
putting you
of
in the hot seat,
investment,
man.
no, it's a good one. But I think when we look at the scale of investment, it's not.
It's different.
It's at least 100 times the amount of investment just that goes into the capital, the capex needs for AI. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm not expecting AI to take over the world. I'm not expecting Skynet anytime soon.
What's funny is I always say iRobot, but I think either probably works. Do you remember that movie, or at least even that?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that a long time ago.
It was really good. But you know what's a better, if you want to talk about AI and being sentient, if you watch the movie Her. Have you seen that movie?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. That was a little.
That
creepy.
was creepy, and or like Ex Machina, however you say that. That was
I saw that.
That was another one that was really interesting. But I think Her took it to a different level. Like the emotional connection. That's just not. It can be faked, but it's not. Which may not be any different than real humans. I really don't know. But that emotional connection could be faked, but it's not. I don't think it's really genuine. I don't want to spoil the movie because it's a good movie. So go and watch Her. Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson are in it. Well, Scarlett Johansson's the operating system, so she's in it. Her voice is in it, but she's not really in it. But it's a very interesting movie, and that's like it's like the whole flying cars thing. Like there's a Reese's commercial that's like, forget flying cars, being able to give someone plastic and get Reese's in exchange. Like this is the pinnacle. This is it. It's like, will we ever actually see those things? I don't know, but it's, I guess, cool conjecture.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. We can never predict the future completely, but where we are right now, I don't think there's any major challenges that are going to come up, or major benefits, I should say, that are going to come up that are going to benefit e-commerce sellers or brands through AI, other than creating creative, creating copy faster. Like those are probably going to be the main benefits for the foreseeable future.
I would just add like operational efficiencies. Like what are ways, and I guess creating copy, if you can plug in keywords and say create copy based on these features, etc., like that would save you a lot of time. Instead of taking 2 hours to write a listing, maybe it takes you 30 minutes and you can apply it. So that's an operational efficiency. If there's other ways that you can use AI in your company, like, all right, here's all the tasks that I have inside of ClickUp. Like that's a project management software that we use. ClickUp has AI or ClickUp Brain, and you can say, hey, summarize all my tasks, tell me what I have so I can be ready for this meeting that's coming up. Like I think those are really awesome tools that it would take you a really long time to do. Now it still doesn't get it right. I'm like, give me all the tasks. And it's like, here's 5. And I'm like, yeah, there's like 20 here. Like I need all 20. So you have to get your prompts right. But that to me feels like a big win for people potentially.
For sure. I mean, everything that's time saving is going to be a big win in some way. But yeah, I mean, these are all little incremental gains. I don't think we're going to see like a massive breakthrough anytime soon.
So you're bearish on AI girlfriends and boyfriends?
Yeah, I'm pretty bearish on that.
Okay, well, that's a great place to end this. Mike, if people want to know more about you and what you're doing, should they just travel to Mexico and find you there, or how can they connect with you?
Of course, you're always welcome to come down to Guadalajara. We're about 45 minutes from the town of Tequila, so we can go do the Cuervo factory, all that fun stuff. But if you don't want to come down here, the easiest way to get in touch with me is my email, mike@amzadvisors.com. And also check me out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. And I'm available on all those platforms as well.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. That's it, everyone. We don't have anything else for you other than it's time to expand on Mexico. And if you want to do that, you know who to reach out to. But you don't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. So peace. All right. That was the show. What did you think? That was the longer game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, and you're in the retail industry? Then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form and text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon Marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice. That is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. And until next time, cheers.